The dog had been in this kitchen every morning for 6 years. She had never once pawed at the back wall. She did it for 45 minutes on a Thursday. They almost missed it. Vera Abramowitz was not a person who missed things. She was a detail-oriented person, a former accountant who had applied the same precision to household management that she had applied to balance sheets, which meant she noticed when things were off by small margins and acted on small margins before they became large ones. She almost missed the dog. Their mixed terrier, 6-year-old Rosie, had been in this kitchen her entire dog life. She knew the kitchen as well as any member of the household. She knew which cabinet held the treats, which corner of the floor got the afternoon sun, which exact position under the table was hers. She was not an anxious dog. She was not a reactive dog. She had no history of destructive behavior, no wall pawing, no obsessive circling. On a Thursday morning in February, while Vera was feeding 9-month-old Leah in the high chair and the coffee was brewing and the radio was on, Rosie began pawing at the back wall, specifically the wall behind the stove. She placed both front paws on the wall, pressed her nose to the junction where the wall met the stove's back panel, and pawed. She pulled back. She pressed in again. She pawed. Vera said her name. Rosie looked at her and went back to the wall. She said it again. Rosie sat. Then she returned. Vera was managing Leah's breakfast, managing the coffee, managing the morning. She redirected Rosie twice more over the next 20 minutes. Rosie was compliant each time and returned each time. At the 40-minute mark, Vera set down Leah's spoon and looked at the dog. Rosie was at the wall behind the stove. She had been there, with brief redirected interruptions, for 40 minutes. She was not playful. She was not excited. She was specific, deliberate, and persistent in the way that Vera, a detail-oriented person, recognized as different from random behavior. She turned off the stove. She moved Leah to the living room. She opened the back door and the kitchen window. She called the gas company. Subscribed now before the next sentence. Because what the gas technician found when he arrived with his detection equipment 40 minutes later is the number that Vera says makes it impossible for her to think about the Tuesday and Wednesday mornings that had preceded the Thursday. There was a microfracture in the supply line connector behind the stove, a fitting that had been seeping natural gas into the space between the stove back panel and the wall cavity. The concentration in that enclosed space had been building. At floor level, the ambient kitchen concentration was 12% of the lower explosive limit, below the ignition threshold, but approaching the range where extended exposure in an enclosed kitchen with an infant at floor level produces symptoms: headache, nausea, dizziness. The gas technician, Petro Winkle, 17 years with the utility company, assessed the connection and looked at Rosie. She said, "The natural gas odorant, mercaptan, is detectable by dogs at concentrations well below the human olfactory threshold. This fitting has been seeping since before today. Your dog was almost certainly registering this before this morning." Today, the concentration reached a point that she communicated about it. She looked at Leah in Vera's arms. An infant at floor level for extended periods in a kitchen with a slow leak at that concentration over multiple days, the cumulative exposure is not trivial. "How long have you been using that stove?" she asked. "Every morning," Vera said. "Every morning since September." Petra wrote something in her report. She said, "Your dog was likely registering this for longer than today. Today she told you about it. That matters." Has your dog ever repeatedly returned to one specific appliance or wall area in a way you couldn't explain? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The connector was replaced. The line was pressure tested. A natural gas detector was installed in the kitchen at floor level, the level where, as it turned out, an infant spent significant time and a gas heavier than air accumulates first. Vera opened the kitchen the following morning and stood in it. It smelled like coffee and morning and nothing else. Rosie went to her spot under the table and folded herself into it with the specific satisfaction of a dog returning to a correct position. She did not go to the back wall. There was nothing there to report. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Vera thinks about the Tuesday and Wednesday mornings. She thinks about Rosie under the table those mornings, which she now revisits differently. She cannot know when the registering started. She knows when the telling started. Thursday, 40 minutes. A wall, a dog who returned to the same place each time she was redirected and did not stop until the detail-oriented person in the room set down the spoon and looked. Leah is 11 months old. She crawls at considerable speed. She is these days primarily interested in anything that is not a toy. Rosie follows her at approximately the same speed, slightly to the left, maintaining the position she has always maintained. Close, present, paying attention. The kitchen is clear. The gas is sealed. The mornings are what they should be. Next, a dachshund who kept sitting on the same step of the staircase every evening, and why the structural engineers report about what was happening inside that particular stair tread changed what the family understood about the previous 3 weeks.